So let's create an action to insert a new employee. So let's create a public iActionResult. I'll call it insert. And here nothing has to be passed in because this is just a basic view that will display the empty text boxes into which the user will enter the information and submit into the database. So this is our HTTP GET version. So all we do here is to return the view. So this view, like I said, is simply going to display the text boxes to enter the information in. Now there's one thing though that we need to have here, and that is a drop down with the countries. When the user wants to create an employee, the user will enter the information for the employee, and the user could enter also the country itself. When we go to our employees table in our database, you can see the employee has a country assigned to it. So we could just have an empty text box and the user would actually enter the country. But I want to make this a drop down with the available countries, because this way we will avoid any misspellings. For example, one user could use the USA, the other one could use U.S.A. and it's the same country, but now it would actually show as two different countries. So we want to limit this, and we want to display just a drop down with all the available countries. So in this action, we are going to create this drop down. And this drop down is also going to be used in the update method or the update action, because again, we are going to be having the same information about the employee, except instead of inserting new information, we are going to be changing it. So rather than coding it directly into this action, I'm going to create a method that will return the list of all countries. So I'll call this one fill countries. So this is a method that we need to create. So I'm going to generate the method for the fill countries. You can see you can create it automatically just by using the IntelliSense. Or you can just type it as private void fill countries. So I'm going to remove this exception, and here what we need to do is to get all the countries from the employees table. However, you can see that they repeat. We have several USA and several UK. What we want is only the distinct countries. We want in a drop-down one USA and one UK to choose from. So I'm going to create a select list, which is a list of type select list. I'll call this one list of countries. And here we will use the link query to get to those countries. So we'll use from C for countries in, and we have the DB context, so we'll go to DB for the employees. And here we are going to select new select list item, because we are creating a drop down, so we need the select list item. So we'll select new select list item, and in it we will have the text for the drop down. So this is gonna be the text that's gonna be displayed in the drop down, and that is the country itself. So the text will equal c.country, and the value is going to be country as well. So the value equals c.country. There is no ID because this is simply a text inside the employees table. Let me just move those parentheses up here. And like I said, we need to select only the distinct records. So we'll use the distinct keyword. And at the end, we will convert it to a list because we are displaying it as a select list. I'm getting an error here because we are creating a select list item, but I have it here as a list of select list. This of course needs to be select list item. And now everything is okay. So now our list of countries is a select list item for our drop down, and it would contain two countries, the USA and UK, because those are the only two countries that we have in our employee table right now. And at the end, we need to return this to our view. Now again, this is gonna be used in several views, so we can simply return this as a view back. So when this method is called, it will have the view bag, and the view bag automatically is available into the view that is being returned from our actions. So we'll use a view bag, and I'll call the property countries, and that's gonna be the list of countries. Alright, so this is our HTTP GET for the insert. Now let's do the HTTP POST for the insert, and this is gonna be fairly simple as well. So here we'll do the HTTP POST, and this is gonna be public iAction result. I'll call it insert as well. And this is what the user submits into the database. And what the user submitting is the employee object. So we'll pass in the employee object, and I'll call it model because that's what we are working with, so that makes sense to call it model. Now I want one more attribute here. It's a common practice to use validate anti-forgery token for our post actions. So I'll use the attribute validate anti-forgery token, and as you can see, this attribute defends against cross-site request forgery. In our case, it really is not needed, but it's a good practice to use it in our post actions. So what do we want here in our insert? Well, we want to first validate the model state, make sure that the employee model is valid. So if the model state that is valid, then everything is okay, and then we can simply insert the employee into the database. So we'll go to our context, and this is for the DB set employees, and we'll use the add method, which will add it into the context, and we are adding the object, which is the model. Now this is still only in the DB context. Now we have to save it into the database, so we'll call the context and the save changes method, and now we have it in the database. And we can display a message that could be a simple view bag. I'll call this one message as a property, and we'll simply say employee inserted successfully. And at the end, we are going to return the model into the view. So we'll return a view and the model. So if everything is successful, we'll simply go back to the view and display it again. If something was wrong, if this failed, then we are going to return to the same view we came from, which is our insert view for HTTP GET, but this time the text boxes will be populated with the data the user already entered, and we will allow the user to fix the error. Now, since we are returning back to the view, we also need to populate the select list item for our dropdown. So here, before we check the model state, I'm going to call the fill countries. So this will give us the dropdown, and then once the user inserts the employee, or if the employee insertion failed, we'll go to the view and the dropdown is still populated. Alright, so this is for our insert. Next, let's do the update.